And that piece of music also abruptly ends. Because, writing endings for songs is hard. Also, welcome to stream.
Hello.
There's a miss. Good for it. Yee. Speaking of music, let's get a little background going on. Annabelle! Friends! How is everybody doing?
And then silence, because I'm finishing folding laundry real quick.
That's fine. It was directed at chat as well. This is apparently doing farty bear, so that's good. I assume that's a Scottish expression for well. Duolingo's really paying off there, isn't it? Hello and welcome to Two Corners of a Canvas. Okay, reading a book you bought today, but not sure you're enjoying it. Oh. Ooh.
Yeah, that happens. I've been poking around at another podcast to listen to now that we're in Dracula off season. And there was one I started listening to, and it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna give it a couple of episodes because sometimes these take a little bit to get started, and it's like, nah, the main character just sort of the way he talks annoys me, so I'm just not going to continue listening to this anymore. I gave it like 2.5 episodes, and nah. So
Yeah, that's fair.
look elsewhere. And
Nothing.
like when it's an auditory medium, it's like if you don't like how the character talks.
Yeah. No creative work is entitled to your time.
Nope.
No, it doesn't. Never happens. Never heard of that happening. My word. Spontaneous purchase while you were at the till, so you had no idea what it was about. Collection of short stories, so at least you're not beholden to a large story. Good point. Also, you might have just read a naff short story. That happens. I used to read a lot of short stories, and most of them were naff. But you're very quickly on to another one, so...
Yep.
Hey, Christy. Yes, this was fisheye lens looking through peephole or camera or whatever cat. And also Night Cat. Insert
Yes.
Knight Rider theme for some reason.
That's a different kind of night.
At
least assuming we're talking about the same show. Which, considering how many things you've watched from like the 60s and 70s that apparently have names that are shared with things that were produced more recently, we might not be talking about the same show.
I think we are. Because all I know about that show is the theme tune. Writing's beautiful, it's just very dark and depressing. Not good soup, fair enough. Don't read Will Self or Long Boy and Knife Cat. Long Boy and Knife Cat. The Adventures of Long Boy and Knife Cat.
Don't give your cat a knife.
Don't.
They don't need any more weapons.
No. They have enough, thank you. Yee. So, Christy's on call with family, and Jeeb's having a chill evening. So, you're left with the substitute teachers. And now I just want to talk about the thing that people have been sharing around the internet of the old book of teaching calculus in simple terms, because that was really neat.
I mean,
Uh,
it's a decent book. Because the fun thing, and this is what happens every time I have to teach calculus to people who are not interested in the theoretical math behind it, which is most of my students who are taking calculus, to be perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm.
Calculus has two basic concepts. Concept one, how do we talk about slope with something that doesn't have a constant rate of change? So it's like, what is the slope of this thing that is not a line? And how do I find the area of this weird shape? And they just happen to be connected through algebraic means that no one could have really predicted until someone stumbled across it. Because those don't feel like things that are related. And all of that is just how do we find this more accurately, and how do we find this in things that aren't just 2D space?
There's calculus thing.
Yeah,
Sorted.
that's
Well,
it. That's calculus.
strictly speaking, the calculus is realizing those two things are the same. Well, not the same, but they're very closely related.
The calculation process for finding those two things is the same thing but in reverse.
Yeah. That's the easier one, and then if you want that one, do it backwards, which is harder.
Yes. And the rest of it is just fiddly details.
Yeah, basically.
But it's the fiddly details that takes up the most time.
The one that people seem to be sharing quite a lot, which was quite fun, is just the explanation of like, hey, if there's a D, that means a little bit of the dx is just a little bit of x, and if you see that thing there, that's just a long S. It means sum. So that just means the sum of lots of little bits of stuff, which is basically what it is.
I think that is literally how the notation came
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
It was you want to know the area of this thing, you cut it up into a lot of little bits, and you can go, well, they're basically rectangles, so we'll just add all those rectangles together, and then the more rectangles we have, the closer the answer will be. And that's boom. Anyway, enough maths.
Yeah, you guys left the mathematicians alone. Fear for your lives.
That's steep and that gib. And I'm talking about calculus. Mr. Algebra, willingly talking about calculus.
I mean, to be fair, we do need algebra to do calculus concepts.
True. But you need like
And,
real algebra, and that's boring.
Yeah, real analysis was not my favorite class.
Complex analysis was better. Because when you do complex analysis, you're like, oh, I can see the whole picture now. Right, this makes way more sense.
Yeah, real analysis we inherently couldn't because it's like, and now we're going to go into nth dimensional space. Good luck.
The same thing, really. Many ways in which that statement is incorrect, but
Look, we can't even get everyone to agree on what math is, so...
yeah, that's fair. Should we distract ourselves with the sprite? Or sorry, what are you
Yeah,
gonna
that's
say?
probably a good idea. Do you want to start or should I start?
I don't mind.
All right.
Either.
We'll flip a coin.
Where's my plectrum? Flip the plectrum. You are USA Nylon. I am Jim Dunlop. You start. Gonna do the Duolingo maths app. Sure, it'll teach you how to speak maths. I don't know what level that goes up to. As if there's some sort of uniform progression, but like... what sort of concepts it delves into if it gets to calculus. Or
Well, I mean, unless you're going like
yeah,
statistics stuff, a lot of stuff builds up to calculus, and that's where it sort of branches off.
hmm. It's nice of you to bring a Jackson Pollock to the stream, but not sure what to do with it. You guys need to download the word game Gubbins. I was going to, mismentioned it. Should we stick to our corners, or do you want to? Should we have a side each? Or
Well, I know Christy's coming in, but also Christy doesn't always take up a lot of room, so I'm going to take up the cheap corner. I guess.
okie dokie.
Just so that there's more room to work with vertically.
I'm going to play a daily game with a cup of tea. Yes, I would like to add it to my long list of daily games alongside Wordle and Vordle and Guess the Game and Duolingo. um.
Geometry, measurement, more elementary math concepts.
Oh, you're gonna have to define elementary, I'm afraid.
Yeah, because depending on what class you're in, that can mean a lot of different things. I've been in some classes where elementary basically just meant things you can do without really advanced calculus.
Like when you say elementary geometry, are you talking about this is a triangle, or are you talking about here are Euclid's axioms? Both technically elementary. Euclid's
I actually have a
elements.
little pocket reference guide that has all of Euclid's axioms just summarized. And then I have the book of Euclid's axioms and the proofs, which is always sort of funny to look through because it's like, these words mean different things these days.
So here's the thing.
Like
Sorry, you?
Yeah, keep going.
No, I was going to go on something slightly different. So.
Yeah, well, the main ones that stick out to me is the definition of what a line is. So these days we'd use line to mean something where it's like point, direct path, direct shortest path between them. And then curve is just something through space. But he uses line to mean what we would say to be curve, and straight line to mean what we'd say to be line. It's like,
Okay.
So that's always fun.
But yeah, the problem with Euclid's axioms is I was taught Euclid's axioms at university. I've forgotten all of them except the fifth because the course was half Euclidean, half non-Euclidean, so the fifth was quite important. And it turns out the version of the fifth I was taught is equivalent to the version that he actually defined, but isn't the same. So I don't actually know any of them. Again, I know it up to equivalence, but
Yeah, well, and I think that's partially because there's a bunch of different ways of defining parallel, depending on what you're working with.
the free version you can only play one game a day, so you won't fall into the rabbit hole that vanishes your day. Oh yeah, that's fair. Elementary: multiplication, division, fraction, area, perimeter, place value, geometry, measurement, decimals. Yeah. No, well, it depends. If perimeter includes perimeter of an ellipse.
I mean, I'm sitting here going, so, fractals.
That too. Oh, it was fun working out the perimeter of fractals.
Yeah, but it's definitely not elementary math.
No. And finding like, oh, this fractal has infinite perimeter and finite area. What's the area? That's a fun one. Intermediate math covers things with harder increased difficulty. Things like calculating hourly wage. Okay, so probably, well, intermediate doesn't sound like we're going to be getting up to calculus. It says area and perimeter. So calculus. Integration and
Okay, so what it's
differentiation, you
probably
say?
focusing on is this thing in math education that's called, of course, now I started to say it and my brain has completely chucked it out,
Brains do that.
as you do. Quantitative reasoning, there we go. So it's looking like it's focusing more on quantitative reasoning. Although again, as we said, we will point out, just saying geometry, that means a lot of things.
Euclidean, I assume. Two options for new learners:
But
beginner math,
non-Euclidean
which
is more
covers
fun.
fundamental topics, or intermediate math, which enhances everyday skills with more challenging exercises. You're both frightening. We could explain non-Euclidean geometry if you want.
Yeah, it's pretty easy actually. You live in non-Euclidean geometry,
Yes.
or I should more accurately say, you live on non-Euclidean geometry.
Yep.
Because the Earth is not a cube.
It's not.
Although it is a two-dimensional surface. Because when you're dealing with a map, you can use just 2 points of reference to figure out where you are on the map, i.e. it's 2D. It's just not rectangular. Ooh, do I get to talk about projections?
Now, map projections. See, that gets the mathematicians and cartographers interested.
You left the mathematicians alone. This sort of thing was bound to happen.
Yeah, never mind miss, I think we're going to scare Christy away as well.
Yes, it is an orb. But to talk about the position on the orb, you only need 2 points of reference, latitude and longitude. And in mathematics, dimension is just a thing that's describing whatever system you're dealing with. I.e., if you only need 2 points of reference to talk about where you are dealing with a 2D space. However, it's not a 2D space that is rectangular, because parallel lines some parallel lines will intersect eventually. Have you ever seen maps where like Greenland is just really fuck-ass huge and then Africa is tiny? That's because when you are projecting something that is in one space, i.e. elliptical space, which is the non-Euclidean space that the orb is on, and try to project it onto rectangular space, something is going to get lost. And one of the common projections is to just take all of the little triangles that happen at the poles and stretch them out into rectangles, which makes Greenland huge.
Miss is just saying orb now. But the fun and important thing about the orb being non-Euclidean is that if you think of what sort of constitutes a straight line on the orb, is, pick a direction and walk and keep walking till you get, till you eventually you're going to end up back where you started, because Earth be orb. And the fun thing is that will make a great circle, a big old, like the equator, just a circle around the biggest sort of point. So if that's a line on the orb, there can't be any parallel lines because any two of those naturally cross somewhere. And that's why it's non-Euclidean. Or at least that's the way I was taught it, because I was taught a version of the Euclid's fifth postulate that was to do with numbers of parallel lines, but not exactly what he wrote. But
Well, also, he was also doing his mathematics literally in the sand.
yeah.
Because that's what they did at the time. You'd have a big, essentially sand pit, and you'd be taking sticks and drawing in it.
Saw an interesting video of a whoop show. I combined woman and map to get whoop. Interesting video of a woman showing a map that was made to have the country sizes accurate in comparison with one another. Yeah, there's like an area preserving projection. There's a few of those.
Yeah, but with those ones, there are things disconnected that should be connected.
The general, I think one of the general rules is if you have a projection of a sphere onto a flat surface, you are either going to have accurate distances or no, sorry, accurate lines or accurate areas, and you're not going to get both.
Nope. And that's true of pretty much every projection. Something's going to get funky.
That's your maths brain cell. Yeah, I don't know what's going on in
That's
the background.
actually why, and I'm sure it's been a while, Chris, but if you remember your multivariate calculus, whenever you do change of variables with integration, that that's why you have that Jacobian component, because if you move from some xy plane to some uv plane, the surface you're integrating across, or the area you're integrating across, is going to change size as well as shape.
Jacobian had something to do with the determinant of a matrix, right?
Yes.
Good. That's the
It's
bit I latched on to, being algebra boy.
it's the determinant of the matrix of partial derivatives.
Oh, I like partial derivatives. They're nicer than proper ones. They also get the curly D, which is more fun to write.
Yeah, mine always look like twos.
What's more fun? Is it that or is it that? That one, obviously, it's a little spiral. I mean, I'm basically done. There's not much to be drawn here. Oh, wait, highlights. I forgot about highlights.
Should we leave you to keep going?
I'll stop in a sec. Ooh! Oh! Oh, they're going for a chomp.
Nom 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 nom.
Nom, 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 nom. Yeah, I didn't see that at all. Is that the actual thing it's supposed to be?
Well, sort of. I left things very disconnected, and also that's not a mouth.
Bugs incoming. What's this from?
So this is a creature called a Zeb.
Zeb.
It's a Metroid.
Uh,
Obviously, so this sprite is from Metroid, OG Metroid. This art is obviously from a much more recent one.
yes. Oh, could you imagine if they had concept art like this back in the day? This was the concept art.
Some of the games did. It's just that it's like you can't do that when you've got like 5 sprites.
Looks like a Metroid. Oh, Mr. saying things in the Gallic.
Yeah, we're talking too fast. And he does not understand.
I do not understand what you're saying, and my brain hurts now. That's what that means. Because I can speak Gaelic.
Well, I can't speak Gaelic, but I've got a thing that apparently does have Gaelic in its Gaelic, whatever you want to call it, in its translate thing. So according to it, it's saying this is saying, "I'm sorry, I don't understand. Can you speak more slowly?"
Oh. So the Jacobian.
Maybe not that slowly.
End of joke.
End of Jacobian.
Haha!
But actually, I can just do that.
Ah. You and Miss did it. Many badums. Almost in sync. Not quite, but almost. Yeah, so Gaelic is Scottish and Gaelic is Irish. So they are two different things.
And that's not confusing at all.
No. Such is the way of, like, you know, same with, like, you know, oh, something Dutch is from the Netherlands, but it's nothing to do with, you know, Deutschland, which is Germany. Places, names, languages, the Tower of Babel, Chants of Sanaa.
Humans are weird.
Heaven's Vault. Is that the other one? Anywho,
I don't know.
I'm just thinking of games about languages. Yeah. But in its most simple terms, you can't remember the proper name for the Irish language outside of Irish and/or Gaelic. I like your little grasshopper friend. They're cool.
I liked it too. A little bit of abstractism.
Speaking of little, let's go with this one.
Chris, is this just plankton?
Maybe. I like them being small. You can impose any details on them you wish.
I like how they appear even smaller since you've got, like, a lot of space around it that's just all magenta. So they look even smaller.
Yeah, it needs scale. So I'm gonna take the outline as a. I'm gonna do a side view. Why not?
And I'm gonna just draw plankton from memory, I guess. Which will be a little difficult because most of my SpongeBob knowledge has just been via osmosis from the internet.
That's fun because most of my Osmosis Jones knowledge has come via SpongeBob. There's almost a joke in there. I don't know where it is, but it also requires that people remember Osmosis Jones. The interesting attempt to make a cartoon to educate children about the human body. where the main character was a white blood cell called Osmosis Jones,
It
solving crimes
was
in
a
the body.
movie first.
That was
And the
okay.
movie I wouldn't consider appropriate for children.
Ah.
So it's one of the things where I'm just kind of like, whose idea was this? Why did we decide to make a spin-off series based off of this and market it to children?
Oh, okay. See, I only knew the cartoon, which I think was called Ozzy
Most
and
people
Drix.
did. Because to be perfectly honest, the movie wasn't great.
Oh.
Again, I don't know why it was.
I mean, I remember very little about the show, so it might have been crap as well, but... not speaking of, but listening to Animal Crossing music, as we are in the stream. I learned today that was it the original Animal Crossing? Which I think was on the Super Famicom, but then ported to the GameCube. No, not the Famicom. What's the one? What was the one before the GameCube?
N64, I think, was the console before GameCube.
Yeah, that might be it. But anyway, apparently in that there is, or at least in the ported version, you can get like little items that allow you to play old NES games. So you can get like an NES in the game and get little cartridges, and you can play like Mario 1 in it. And people pointed out a couple of interesting things about that. Firstly, buying it on like the Wii when it was ported to the Wii meant you were playing it on a GameCube emulator that was emulating the N64 that was emulating the NES. There's like 3 emulators deep to play Mario. But the other thing is, apparently it's like one of the best like NES emulators that Nintendo have released. Apparently it's just like really stable and very accurate.
Really funny, actually.
Dream within a dream within a dream. Emulatorception. I remember once writing a silly premise for a story, which was that people discovered that, hey, simulation theory is real, and we're not the first level of simulation. And in actual fact, the universe is fully Newtonian, and all non-Newtonian physics is just rounding error from continued emulation. Because I like that idea. It felt satisfying. It's like, oh no, physics is supposed to be neat. We're just in a really crappy emulation. Einsteinian physics is a bug.
But not crappy enough to allow us to clip through the floor.
No, unfortunately. Well, maybe we're supposed to. That's a bug as well.
Yeah. And misses back to Orb.
Orb. I miss with Animal Crossing music. Hopefully that makes it better. Or are we going to taint Animal Crossing music forever in your mind?
Or putting math in the Animal Crossing.
No. That goes deep. It's making maths
I do not
palatable.
trust this whale slug man thing. That's. I look forward to zooming out.
What's wrong with him? You just got rewarded Duo Super at a time you really don't have the energy for it. Yep, that happens.
Well, you didn't pay for it, so if you don't make use of it, it's no loss to you.
I'm coming up to a year on Duolingo, which means that I'm coming up to the point at which I go, cool, let's find a different way to learn that. Got a bunch of basic vocabulary, let's try something more useful. I'll still occasionally come back to Duo, but probably not as a daily thing. Took a 2-week free trial just so you didn't have to hear welcome to Super Duolingo. Welcome to Super Duolingo. Did I get... I'm pretty sure I recorded... Welcome to Super... Pretty sure I got a recording of that. Yeah, so always what I try and do, try and mute it at the word soup. It's very difficult to get it at the P.
Welcome to Soup.
Welcome to Soup.
You're at the soup store.
Welcome to Soup. A lot of people have done that with, like, Super Mario games and stuff like that. Just isolated, you know, instead of Super Mario Sunshine, just Soup. It's a fun time. Welcome to Super Dueling. That's much more interesting. You'll feel guilty for not making the most of it. Don't worry. The owl won't hold it against you. This time.
That's marketing trying to take advantage of your fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Because it's evil.
Don't be manipulated, Bear. Instead, be manipulated by us.
I mean, or not. I don't care.
But is that a tactic to build trust?
I make a terrible salesperson because I'm just here to impart information. Do with it whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, and that's how they trick you into getting trust. I don't actually mind what you do, but... It's all a conspiracy. You're being tricked by Big Nice. took a purposeful day away from the owl this week, and it was bliss. I keep forgetting. I'm getting to the point now I am just forgetting. And you realize you can just take a day off? Freeing, yes. That's what I want to get to the point where I just don't feel beholden to do it constantly. Because sometimes you just go there, you do a lesson, and like, I didn't really get anything out of that, but I don't have the energy to do anything else. And other times you're like, cool, I'm getting somewhere. And you want to try and make that feeling the thing that is the overriding experience. There's an Oobs! It's a noobs. How's the noobs?
A noobs.
A noobs. And singular noobs.
Have you heard the good noobs? I don't believe in that owl.
Yes, if you don't believe, it can't hurt you.
Or the noobs is owl agnostic.
Agnostic. Insert the gif of Duolingo Owl here.
I mean, you could also just submit a GIF of the Duolingo owl. Chris has that function on his bot.
Yeah, but it also relies on the thing ending in .gif, which is rare nowadays. Because people are desperate for you not to share things. Yeah, that's a tenor one, so I can't copy the link. That wouldn't work. Maybe I can go into the bottom, see what I can do, change it around. Daily quest is done. Oh, I got all of my monthly things, so I stopped caring about daily quests. One other thing I've noticed, I'm basically done by the way, I'm adding sparkles.
No fun.
But one other thing I noticed is that spelling on Duolingo is much more lenient on mobile. On desktop, it is strict.
See, I didn't even notice that. I'm usually doing mobile.
Anyway, I'm gonna zoom out. It's Plankton and his cousin Krill.
Full of sparkles and sunshine.
Yeah. See, it's funny, when I chose this sprite, I was like, oh, that's small enough, people won't be able to get it. Then I looked at it when I was posting it and I was like, actually, it is quite obvious. And then you immediately said Plankton. Like, what was old me thinking? Or young me, I guess. It's one of those words.
You.
Previous me, yes. Prior me. I guess I should get a picture of Plankton just for the sake of completion.
I mean, my thought when I saw it was, it's like, okay, this is probably some shrunk down rabbit. Because we've already seen sprites from you where it's like this was a lizard, but it's apparently been hit by a shrinking ray, and we're partway through that.
Might be what I was hoping for.
yeah, he's got the eyebrow. Got the eyebrow. Also, it just... I know why it's done like that, but it just... My brain is parsing those little black lines on his antenna as little sensor bars.
Yeah, it's hard to see on this. Yeah. I mean, I don't know enough about the anatomy of plankton to be able to say whether that's accurate or not.
I think there's a couple of plankton that have like little frilly... Because plankton are like the one-celled organism version of plants. So some of them have like little frilly bits. So I think that's what that's sort of emulating. But with this image especially, it just looks like he's got a little bunch of little sensor bars on his antenna. Which is funny for multiple reasons. Or at least I think it's funny for multiple reasons.
There doesn't really seem to be an awful lot of consistency of what's going on with the antenna in the animation. It's evidently changed over time, but
That doesn't surprise me. SpongeBob has been around long enough that I'm sure the animation team has shuffled a lot. Finding various things to make things faster.
E. Well, that's that. What's next?
What is next? Well, next is I have to hide a layer. Let's do this little friend.
Little friend?
We'll see how small the sprite pops up. Oh,
Ooh.
that is very tiny. We're gonna make this just a little bit bigger, just so that the people watching at home can see it. I can never tell exactly how big a sprite is going to be when it gets pasted onto here until I actually go through the process of trying to paste it.
Durgan Fairy. This feels like a Dragon Quest, but I don't know.
It is a Dragon Quest, yes.
Oh. See, I'm learning slowly.
They have a very distinct style when it comes to characters and monsters. So once you've seen a couple, it's pretty easy to pick out what they are. Unless it's like an overworld sprite from some of the older games, in which case you've got like 5 pixels to work with and it's hard to tell what it is at all. But when it comes to the battle sprites, there's a very distinct style. And the style hasn't changed since the 80s.
It's nice to have consistency. Stares at Final Fantasy.
I mean, Dragon Quest has some games where they try out new things, but it's mostly like battle mechanic stuff or just interacting with world stuff. But as far as designs used for creatures, the designs used in like the Dragon Quest Builders game, which are Dragon Quest but we're Minecrafting it, are the same as from these older games. Translated to 3D, of course, instead of a 2D sprite. but that's about it. I think part of it might be because they've had the same, like, it's the same guy who's been doing the art from the beginning. So it's not like we've got different people working on the character design and the model sprites. It's the same artwork we're building off of. Although now that I'm looking at these Dragon Quest things, I'm sitting here going, you know what would be fun? A monster collection game from Final Fantasy. Because there's some fun beasties in there, and I would like to have them in my party.
There was a mobile one like that, right?
Wouldn't surprise me. Also wouldn't surprise me if it was dead.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, I'd like to just get a game I can buy and own.
That is
where
why I
I'm
stopped.
doing Monster Rancher stuff, but it's Final Fantasy monsters. That was one of my favorite games growing up, was Dragon Quest Monsters, which was of that vein but using the Dragon Quest series. So all the little monsters are in the game, and you can get the little monsters in your party and give them names. One of these days, I'm gonna get a way to project and stream that so I can show it to everyone.
Oh, I have been made aware of a Digimon Cyber Sleuth randomizer. In case you're interested.
Oh boy. I might look into that after I play through the game vanilla. No, actually, I think Square Enix was making another installation into the Monsters series, though it might have only been for Switch. If it is, I will be very disappointed. Hi, Christy.
Hello, Christy, how you doing? Now, with sound. Scratch that.
Yep, or no sound.
Now, without sound.
Zoom tight.
We're getting all the weird sound effects in Animal Crossing. Oh yeah, that's the point. The remake, remaster, whatever, of the Super Mario RPG is out, and I want to have a gander at the soundtrack. I have no idea if people think the remake's good, remaster. I hope so. That game's a nice little time.
I mean, I figure there will probably be sort of two veins: people who are like, "Oh, this is amazing," and people who are like, "It's not exactly the same. It sucks." And both groups are probably wrong for different reasons.
Nuance.
Hey Chris. Why have you done this?
It's the prompt. I merely followed the prompt. Don't know why you're taking issue with it.
This is a nightmare demon.
Nothing of the sort.
This is a nightmare demon. I look forward to zooming out.
I wouldn't.
I mean, we gotta have a little bit of Kirsten here, right? Jeeb isn't drawing today.
Gotta make up for it. I'm trying my best, Jeeb. Jeeb's getting real good at glitching out games. I need to up my my cursed drawing abilities so that we can match. Rest assured, though, this is not one of these drawings that I'm going to hurry to open up Blender and give it a remake.
I mean, some things are scarier in 2D. And or when you try and put them in 3D, it's a thing that just does not work.
Yeah.
Which is actually one thing they had to do a lot of work with the Trigun anime remake. Because with that one, and I don't remember exactly how they were doing it, but basically each of the characters they've got, they're with the new version of it, they're using 3D animated models as opposed to just drawing everything flat. So they had to be like, right, so we're having to redesign these characters a bit because how will his hair work?
Yeah. that is a persistent anime problem. That is all very
We need to
well,
make
but
sure
how
this-
do hair work?
Yeah, it's like we need to make it like recognizable that this is who the character is intended to be. But also, we need to make our 3D animators not cry in the closet for 3 hours.
Well, makes them better than Disney.
That's not a high bar. But yeah, I think the designs are good. And I await to see what they do in season 2.
I'm basically shading at this point. I don't know if we want to zoom.
Okay, oh.
Da 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 da. Ah, yours is cuter.
Yeah, Miss said Durgan Fairy, and I decided to make the wings fairy wings.
So this is the new secret evolution of Appleton. Hope you like it. Yee, Durgan Fairy. You're cute. Mine can go in the bin, can it? No, it will spring right back out.
And then we will all just sit in fear. So, and to show what I mean by these designs haven't changed much.
Dang.
In 3D in Dragon Quest X, I believe that's its model. Meanwhile, the sprite here is from Dragon Quest II.
This is an imp. Think of me.
Yeah, this monster is usually called a gremlin.
Gremlin.
But there is one game where I believe its name is something like Beelzebaby.
Good name.
Yeah, which is inspired for just a hilarious name.
Good old Beelzebub. I also like looking at games like this because you can so clearly see the polygon like edge, but the texturing and lighting does an awful lot to make it feel smooth. Good job, game makers. There's the Plamp. Hey Plamp, do you want to see what I drew? There it is. How are you doing? Having a good morning?
We drew a baby. And Chris made it horrifying.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure I did. I made a drawing from something that's supposed to be a baby. A friend? They want to be your friend.
Whether you want them to be your friend or not is a different matter.
Yes. And whether they care that you want to or not is a different matter.
I do the good old let's put the eyes somewhere else.
Yeah, it's classic. I mean, I saw the eyes as a bow tie. But then I was like, where did the eyes go there?
Yeah, because you got that cap sort of thing there, little hood.
So I sort of bit of artistic license on the color of the horns/eyes. Bit of artistic license, he says, looking at what he drew.
With the spiral stomach and tail.
That's a spring.
Boing. Absolutely none of us can stop you, for better or worse.
Almost certainly worse. Speaking of which, let's do another spring.
Let me turn off those layers.
I like this one. We're gonna do this one.
Well, I know what I think it looks like, and I'm not going to draw it at that angle, because drawing it at that angle is going to be a pain in the butt.
Okay, but attempting the impossible, getting ready to start work while you're sleeping. Oh no! That's a workplace hazard.
That's me. Let's see if I can draw this from the side. Probably not.
But if you think drawing it from the side's going to be tricky, you're probably on the right track.
It's just that I don't know if I can get the, well, I say I don't know. I know I can't get the perspective right from the front, so I'm just not going to.
Less of a hazard if you have silly emails job, at least. Emails are the worst, though.
I mean, I mostly have trouble with emails because I deal with a lot of students who don't know how to write emails in a useful way. So it feels like every other time someone's emailing me, it's like, cool, what class is this for? You need to realize I have 4 of them. Granted, I know you're not in 2 of them, because 2 of those classes are 3 people, and it's the same 3 people in those 2 classes.
Did I ever tell you during my masters, I did a course in knot theory, and I was literally the only person doing it.
That doesn't surprise me. That was my undergrad differential equations class,
Oh,
where for some
does,
reason I was the only one.
that does surprise me. Differential equations are much more useful.
Yeah, well, I think it's partially because no one liked the instructor, and it's like, oh, I'll do a different elective. I also did not like the instructor, but I needed to take the elective. Partially because I knew it was going to be necessary for grad school. And it was awkward because we were in literally the largest classroom in that building. The only larger classrooms were labs. And he taught it like he would a regular lecture.
Oh, come on. You got to adapt. thing is, by that point, I'd made enough of an impact on the department for them to know that, like, you like algebra. Here are just all of the notes. If you have any problems, I'm here. And that was a really enjoyable course. So a real horror story of a post on Tumblr about the carnage someone gets from students who need to send a transcript and don't know how to save a PDF or find a file on their computer. Out here sending a
I have to
transcript
deal
as
with that too.
yeah, as a phone pic on your computer screen. What was it? Somebody sent you a link by photographing the piece of paper that was that had the link on it or something.
Yeah, I also had a student who submitted an essay by taking a picture of their computer that had the essay brought up on a Word document. And I had to sit there and go, no, we're not doing this. But yeah, the file location things is definitely a problem. I deal with students all the time where I have to sit there and go, all right, where did you save this? And they're like, what do you mean, where did I save it? And it's like, what do you mean, where did you save it? Here's a file. It has a location on your computer. That location has a name. What is the name of that location?
I guess if you're used to mobile and stuff like that, you don't know about file systems.
But
That's
the thing is,
weird.
your mobile device also has those file systems. You can literally open up the file manager and look at that. Like if you're taking pictures, the pictures you take on your phone are saved in a folder with a name. If you download something, it's saved in a folder with a name.
Not very much. That sounded like a riddle.
Like, I'm not trying to trick you. I'm asking you a legitimate question. Where is it? Where is your file? Because especially with Fun Class, there's this software we're using where it's like these things need to be in the same folder in order for this to work correctly. Where did you put it?
Oh yeah. I've sent you my LaTeX file, but none of the attachments. As shown in graph 1A, image not found.
Yeah.
Well, I say an image not found, it probably just failed to compile.
Yeah.
Oh, my LaTeX days are coming back to me. So for reference, for people, LaTeX is I don't know strictly what it would be, markup language. It's a way to format writing symbolic notation in science and math that is in a way standardized. But in order to do it, you have a sort of you have the back end of it, which you write, and then you compile it to make a nice document. And I have yet to find, I've tried many programs, I have yet to find a good editor for LaTeX, and it's just, they've all got their own problems. It's a fun. Hi, Kara!
Yeah, in the most general sense, it's a way of programming formatting for a PDF file.
Hmm.
And it's used most often for writing scientific papers in areas of science that involve a lot of formulas, such as mathematics and physics.
There was an opinionated reply to the post about how nobody taught them that because they were assumed kids either grow up native with tech or that somebody else parent school would do the teaching.
Well, that's been a problem for years. I've been hearing about administrators going, "Oh, these kids are all tech native" for over a decade, and they're always wrong.
No late, Kiro. You do as you arrive precisely when you mean to. LaTeX is hell on earth. Don't understand it despite programming for a living. It's a thing. Trying to
The
do
syntax of it is really different from a lot of languages. Like, I'm sort of familiar with it, but that's partially because I've done things like that.
well, my entire 180-page thesis was written in it, so I had to get used to it eventually. In fact, I actually remember teaching a class of it the first years when I was doing my PhD.
I teach a class where we go over just sort of the bare bones basics of, like, here's how you format and edit a LaTeX file, starting with an already existing LaTeX file.
Also, yes, it is spelled latex. But no one wants to say latex, so it's called LaTeX. And it's called that because it came from something called tech, which was just TEX. And it was expanded into LaTeX.
And if you think that's weird and a little confusing, welcome to academia. There's a reason why I went right wizard nonsense. Feral academics. Or more succinctly, academics.
Yeah.
Although some are more feral than others. I had a coworker once who got a ringworm infection and decided to just keep it for a while to see what would happen. And it's like, ma'am, I know, like, biology and ecology is your thing, but go to the doctor. Well, this is a little better from the side, but also this part now looks like an eyeball. Oh well. We'll just leave that.
There's definitely a problem with the software, not with you. Yes. I mean, it's a bugger to learn. Assuming you get a nice, editor and compiler. If you don't, it's worse. Anyway, how is Akira? Akira good? Oh, that's another fun thing. Obviously, LaTeX can't do everything, so you do need to get extensions and additions and stuff like that. So if you want to try and make, fancy plots and graphs and such, you're going to have to learn whatever the person who made that extension thought was a good idea for a markup language.
I just usually use a separate editor, turn it into an image file, and then just insert the image. It's like no, fuck this.
Oh, hang on. Let me show you from my thesis, I will show you a page that I was very proud of actually completing.
Oh boy.
Sleepy, but okay. How are you? Yeah, right.
And considering I know you're an algebraist, I look forward to whatever nonsense formatting this is.
Well, it was more combinatorial, so. Where do I keep this? Where is all my old math stuff? I could just look it up. It's in the British Library if anyone wants to find it. Found that out the other day. The British Library is required by law to have a copy of everything published in the UK, including PhD theses.
Huh.
So my thesis is in the British Library. I am published in the library. Still trying to find my stuff though. Where is it? I have a very terrible filing system. Here we are. There we go. Research.
Running away from uni is great. I can actually almost recommend it.
Corrected thesis. There.
See, that's sort of funny to say to someone who has a PhD and someone who is seriously looking into what programs would work well for a PhD.
Ooh, exciting.
But also, at least one of us agrees that yes, not everyone should be going to university to get degrees.
There you go. It's not the most complicated thing in the world, but I just remember this being an absolute bugger. Getting all those boxes and all the little numbers and all the arrows and. I did start.
This is the worst tree. This is just the worst tree diagram.
Look, there's a lot of Sockle tabloids in 5 dimensions. And I think I tried. Oh yeah, I did bits for the 6-dimensional ones, but I didn't bother actually putting them all in one. Did I? Maybe. Hang on, let me see. Did I bother? No, I didn't. This is yeah. I literally made a setting of like, I'm not gonna bloody draw this thing, but here's bits and bobs. 5 dimensions was bad enough. 6 is a pain. I'm leaving this.
Left as an exercise for the student.
Yes. If you didn't drop out of one of those, you probably would have gotten used to it eventually, but you ran away from university screaming and yelling, so we'll never know. Oh. Run away from uni is great. You can almost recommend. Well, I'm glad you did this. You're having a good time since. You remember that page. I haven't really drawn much, so I'll zoom out and also make that bigger so it's not showing you the address bar because that's just annoying. Ah!
Yeah.
So
Skelly in trench coat.
This is what I saw when I saw it, and I was like, I wonder if anyone else would see it. Alas.
I mean, I can see where you saw that from.
Alas, Ragdoll is too good.
It's always very interesting to like see, because like looking at it, I went, okay, that's probably a car. But looking at yours, I can see exactly where each element translated onto your drawing of it. Yeah, and I guess Kiro saw the same thing too. Someone in a car. Wacky World of Rich or Scary thing where their head is just popping out the top. Oh, okay.
Specifically, and mouse.
So there just isn't a top.
Exactly. It was Stuart Little and the cow. From presumably a Stuart Little Game Boy game or whatever.
God, when did that movie come out? Because I know the movie is technically based off of like a set of books or something, like very vaguely based off in the way a lot of movies are. I'm not gonna look that up. When did Stuart Little come out? Because I remember seeing it in movie theaters.
What is this? Busy World of Richard
Ooh.
Scarry. Oh, you've shown me this before.
1999. Yeah, that would I feel old.
That was one of Hugh Laurie's first American films, wasn't it? Before House. Making the
Its
transition.
soundtrack came out as an audio cassette.
Wonderful.
I mean, also as a CD, but the fact that it's like audio cassettes are still a viable thing to sell your soundtrack as.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
We did realize actually that in this house, I am now the only person who owns a way of playing a CD. So CDs I think are already are basically defunct now. A lot of modern consoles can't play CD.
Yeah, that's a problem. Now, I know why a lot of laptops don't have them installed anymore, like as default hardware. That's partially because since laptops are like moving around a lot, if you like physically, if something happens and things knock into it, seeing as a CD DVD player has moving parts in it, that's the thing that's going to break first. And since
Yeah.
it's a laptop, those are hard to like remove and replace. So it's like, how about we just not put in the thing that's going to most likely break? And just have it as an extra periphery.
Yeah.
For device.
To be fair, the reason I'm the one in the house with a way of playing a CD is because I bought my computer and realized it didn't have a CD drive, so I thought I'll buy an external one. So if I hadn't thought that and thought, it's fine, I don't need one, then we just wouldn't have one now. Short of getting, getting an old console like the PS2 or whatever and playing on that.
I need to figure out where my CD player is because my newer laptop doesn't have a CD drive in it because they're not in there because of the crashing thing. I have one around, I just don't remember where it is.
We also have the opposite problem. In as much as digging around very old vinyls. And we're like, oh yeah, we should get out the vinyl, the record player and listen to some of these real old things. And we realized that the record player that we have is actually a USB one designed to like record sort of onto a computer from a vinyl, digitized vinyl. So we would short of setting it up on another computer, we would have to buy like some new USB speakers to play old vinyl records. So what? That's not how technology works.
Rip.
Oh
yeah, my car still has a CD player in it, yeah. Because I don't have any plans of getting a new car anytime soon.
Yeah.
And I sort of do not look forward to the time when I do have to replace my car, because a lot of cars these days have things where it's like, don't do that. I don't want this in my car. Don't put this in my car. I don't want a touchscreen in my car. That's dangerous.
Yeah.
For two major reasons. One, for those of you who don't know, your typical touch screens, the liquid diode screens, tend to fail more in high heat situations, which is why if you've got like your phone out and it's like in direct sunlight, sometimes you'll get a thing of like a warning message of like, oh, it's too hot, I'm just going to shut down so that the phone doesn't break. Yeah, that's a safety thing. Guess what is in the front part of most cars? Combustion engine that generates heat. Also, you've got all those windows, so light's coming in, so it's like there's not really a good way of like protecting this touch screen from high heat situations. Two, when you've got a console that has knobs and buttons, and those knobs and buttons don't move, you can sort of use muscle memory and feeling to figure out where the various knobs and buttons are that you need without looking down at the console. But touchscreens, by their nature, are smooth surfaces, and the buttons move around depending on what is being displayed, which means you need to look at the screen to know what buttons you're pressing. And when you're looking at the screen, you're not looking at the road.
I mean, there was a big thing about that when like all phones were going to touch screens, and it's like that's not great for people with like visual impairments and things like that who need to communicate. They can just press this sequence of buttons. They understand. Some of those stupid car tablets, yeah, peripherals in cars that don't belong in cars. But it's futuristic, you know, despite being quite old technology at this point. Yeah, give me buttons, please. I like buttons.
Give me a system that's still going to be working in 15 years, please.
No, but then how could they sell you the next one?
I will do the thing that various US farmers did and be like, right. Okay, so I don't know if this is a thing that anyone outside of the US or anyone outside of the Midwestern US was aware of, but a decade or so back, a bunch of farmers were like going into this thing where it's like, okay, well, we're gonna, instead of buying new John Deere tractor machines, we're actually going to be going to auction and buying like John Deere tractor machines from the 80s to avoid buying these new machines. Because what would happen is these new fangled machines would have some computer systems in it, which not inherently a bad thing. A lot of cars these days have a little computer monitor system that is useful for helping to determine where a failure state might be. So it's sort of the higher tech, more information version of the my check engine light is on. So the check engine light comes on, but there's a little computer in there where if you've got you have something that connects to the little computer, and the little computer will spit out code that tells you sort of where in the engine the fail system probably is happening, so that your person fixing it can more easily go in and fix what the problem is instead of looking through the entire engine to figure out what's wrong. But John Deere is like, well, if the thing goes off and the computer goes off and you try and like mess around with the machine and you don't have the John Deere license TM thing, the system's going to shut down, which bricks your tractor. And all of these farmers who are used to sort of doing their own maintenance would get the tractor, be like, oh, something's busted, I know how to fix this, fix it themselves, and then that bricks the tractor. So it's like, well, if these new tractors aren't going to work, we'll just buy the old tractors that don't have this problem.
Yeah.
And this is why right to repair is very important, because if you cannot repair your machine, you do not own your machine. Anyway, rant over.
So that gave me a chance to do a little shading.
Now he's got an even fancier robe. And very beady eyes.
Then if I was going to stick with like the hollow look and make him shiny. Good rant. Good rant with a good message. Yee, should we do another?
Yeah,
Yep, yep.
definitely got time for another. Let's see. You know what? Let's do this one. Because I know we will enjoy the concept art when I bring it up.
Yeah. I'm gonna rush through this so we can see it fast. Got like a kind of like an American sitcom sort of thing. Someone walks through the door and then there's like applause for 10 minutes. We got that particular concept art in this stream now.
Because it's delightful. I'm that one M. Bison gif.
Yes, yes. Sorry, I was looking up M. Bison GIF. There's a bit of Raoul.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's just like, oh crap, yes, I'm streaming. Trying to find a good one of him going, of course! Which is all I know about that film.
It's a very cheesy film that has one of the rawest lines ever. For you, it was the worst day of your life. For me, it was Tuesday.
Classic. That and there's a skeleton comic strip thing too, Ghost Riding. They do a couple of back-to-back yeses. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Got the jaws in exactly the opposite orientation, and it makes it look weird.
Oh no, we wouldn't want
Why?
anything to look weird in these streams. You must follow my example and make everything look perfectly well suited to its environs.
That's a little better, I think. The angle of it was just going to be bugging me.
Concentration. Always still have a bit of a worry in my mind of like, oh, a stream with dead air. Can't have a stream with dead air. And then I remember that there are people who, you know, stream to hundreds of people on Twitch with no microphone or camera or anything. They just draw. And it's like, oh yeah, there's no rules. I mean, there are rules in terms of service, but you know what I mean.
Yes. There are rules, but not rules that say you have to talk all the time.
Yeah, there are no rules for what makes good content.
TM.
Not a fan of the word content, but such is the state of modern internet.
I say just call it art. You're making art. And there's no rules for what makes good art. There might be rules for what makes a good example of certain kinds of art. But that's always there are certain things we expect from this sort of piece. And even then, there are ways you could take that and break it in ways that are still good and effective. Like, one thing I've seen, there is a comic. I've seen it on Tumblr a couple of times. Every time it makes its rounds, and people are like, "Oh, this is cute." Where it's like, so there's this thing in some fiction where it's like, "Oh, it was all a dream." At the ending, and it's usually one of those things where it's like, well, that feels like a cop out, and that's terrible. This comic is one of the few times where it's like, oh, it was all a dream, and that actually makes this comic better. Because the start of the comic, you've got two humans that are like sitting in a living room, and the doorbell rings, and it's like, who's at the door? It's like, well, I ordered food. It's probably the food coming in there, and it turns out no, it's a couple of skeletons that are there to so they like break in and like break open the door even though it's been locked and start menacing the humans in a silly way. And then a dog bursts in and starts like like picking up the bones and ripping apart the skeletons to save his humans. And then you see the little bubble things, and then you see the dog laying on the couch with its little legs moving, and the two humans are like, I wonder what he's dreaming about. So it was all a dream, but in that sense, it actually makes the story better and cuter instead of disappointing.
All I think about when I hear the thing of like, it was all a dream being a terrible way to end a story was in primary school. I must have been like 9. And we had a little lesson where we were writing stories. And we got like, you know, a decent chunk of the way through, like 45 minutes into it. And the teacher went round and said, oh, by the way, don't make the story end with it was all a dream, because that's a terrible ending. And it's like, I've been building towards that for the past 45 minutes. I'm 9 years old. And I just remember being really annoyed.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, you have a point, but you could have told me that first.
Yes, there is that. As a teacher that is now, unless the purpose of the activity was, oh, you're getting partway through it, and now I'm presenting you with a new thing that you now have to deal with, or it's like you're partway through the activity, oh, by the way, here's a twist you now have to deal with. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But also when you're 9 years old, that's maybe not an appropriate activity as a writing prompt.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I was 9, it was terrible, but the principle
well, yes,
of the
because
matter.
you were 9. With that sort of thing, the rules should have been set beforehand. So unless, because I mean, I've seen that. God, there's a cooking show where that's sort of the entire premise, where it's like, okay, you're going to start cooking, and now partway through the thing, we're now going to impose a weird restriction on you, and now you have to deal with it. And these are like master level chefs, so it's not like they're just floundering with no idea what to do. But like,
No, they're
yeah, if you're
9-year-olds.
dealing with people who've got like a good groundwork of things, where it's like, okay, start writing a story, and then 30 minutes in, it's like, okay, by the way, they're all on an alien planet. Go. That's a sort of interesting exercise, but not when you're 9. Especially when you're not expecting they're going to throw a weird thing at me 30 minutes in. Yeah, Oobs knows what I'm talking about.
What? The butt with the BDSM
So,
gear and what?
yeah, there's one of the sets of images. There's a set of images from it that goes around every so often from that show, which I can't remember it off the top of what it's called off the top of my head because I'm terrible with names. Where with one of the challenges, it's like they were partway through cooking, and it's like, okay, cool, we're now attaching this spreader bar to your wrists, so your wrists are at a fixed distance from each other. Continue cooking. So you've now got to deal with the fact that your arms are a fixed distance apart while you're trying to maneuver and get things cut and prepared. And like I said, these are expert level chefs, so it's not like they're taking just some random like person who just likes to cook their dinner every third day of the week and sticking stuff on them. These are all professionally trained chefs who've been working for a while, but it's still one of those things of like, Cutthroat Kitchen, that sounds right. I've only watched a handful of episodes myself, and I'm terrible at remembering names.
One of the sea shows. Gordon Ramsay's The C Word.
Okay, I just looked it up on Wikipedia. That looks like it's correct because its description is talking about the sabotages. Which is what the things are. Where it's like we're doing a sabotage. You now have a spreader bar attached to your wrists, so your hand you can't freely move your hands around.
Chopped is the box one? What's the one where they get Chocolate Guy on and you get him to present something impossible?
I think he might have been on Chopped.
I have not done that.
Because I think with that one, they usually, like, the start is, okay, we're starting with a closed box and lift the box, and it's like, this is what you have to create.
Here.
That, or they open up the thing, and it's like, these are what you have to incorporate into your thing.
Leather cone of shame. Tools replaced with cowboy gear. Is watching people good at cooking not enough? You gotta make them stir with a revolver.
I mean, some people find it amusing. I'm
Oh yeah.
personally a little more into what happens with Chopped, because with Chopped, it's usually it's a challenge thing. So usually the challenge is you are having to recreate this very specific, difficult dish, or the challenge is here's something that you have to use in your dish. So it's a set of mystery challenge ingredients where it's like, make something with this. And you have to have a pretty good idea of like cooking in general to look at just a random item and know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Or know what you can do with it.
They also don't explain the road cone in that. Usually watch Great British Bake Off. It's in a scattering of episodes from other shows. Great British Bake Off is you know, mostly just chill. What with it being British. It's like, hey, we've got some general challenges, but they're just like, hey, do you know how to do this?
And sometimes the answer is no for all of them.
Yeah, including the judges.
I've seen their Tex-Mex. I've seen the Tex-Mex food that they made.
Look, we don't know that stuff. We don't have it here.
I saw the thing where it's like we're making all of these Jewish food, but none of it's kosher.
That sounds about right. I'm like 10 levels deep in shading at this point. We can't stop before.
Zoom out.
Boom. Ah!
That is very sharp and very
Yeah.
shiny.
The nail teeths.
You can fit so many accents in this bad boy. Yes, that's what happens when people live in a place for a very long time. Language drifts.
Yeah. We've had a long time of a lot of people in a small space constantly being invaded by lots of other people. And then constantly invading other people afterwards. And it does stuff to the accents. A FNAF. Underwater FNAF. It's a Sonic.
Yes.
And you know what that means?
Yes, so this
Ooh.
is an enemy called Jaws.
Good name.
So the first image I'm posting is a 3D model of it from a more recent version, more recent game. So you can better see what's sort of intended for the design. And then the star of our show,
Mr.
Mr. Yashihara's concept art.
Yes. Perfect. Every time I'm like, no, this one's not gonna be as good, and then it's like, yes, here comes the boy.
I don't think I've seen a single bit of Yashihara's concept sketches that didn't make me just like either like laugh a lot or at least be like very amused. They're just all very silly.
Hey,
I
oops,
think it has something to do with the eyes.
Yeah. No concept art. It's perfect. Put this in the game. Boom. Sorted. The eyes are good. The eyes are very good.
Yeah, the fact that I think part of the fact is like why it's so funny is it's like the eyes are so different in size.
Oh yeah.
And with how they're placed, it's definitely not a perspective thing, because one, that would be backwards. Two, the difference would not be that much.
Yeah.
but that's what makes it sillier and more delightful.
What a joy. The only sadness is we are eventually going to run out of these, but what a lad. See, here's me doing stupid things like shading, when I could have been making fine art.
The finest of arts. At some point, I'm gonna hunt down to see if I can find, because I've seen a lot of Yashihara's concept art for, like, the Sonic games, but I kind of want to see if I can find any more of his art for various projects he's worked on, because it's very funny.
Well, that's an interesting idea, Miss. Miss says, like, next challenge is taking these sketches and working out what they look like in the game. Sort of guessing from that. But in general, I'm a fan of concept art. I like looking up concept art. And my favorite kind of concept art is when you see, like, really early versions before they've properly worked out what they want to do. And I think that might be fun to try and find some concept art that is, like, on its way to becoming a final thing and just plonking it in front of everyone and going, what do you think that turns into?
Yeah, that would actually be kind of interesting, because I know there's some stuff out there where you look at it and you go, So some of it is, like, fairly close. So, like, God, what's the name of the other gentleman who did most of the concept art for Sonic 1? I do not remember his name off the top of my head, but a lot of his artwork looks very close to what was in the game. I can actually pull. This one's listed here, it just doesn't have his name attached to it. So this is concept art from the other main gentleman. So that one is
also good.
Very close to what it actually is. It's just very obviously been done with, like, a pen and marker. So it's like, well, we're just going to get the rough idea of the colors. The marker lines are not going to be filled in because the animators are going to handle that later. As opposed to Yashihara's work, where it's like, well, this is the sort of general shape of it. And that's fine. So some of it, it's like you can sort of see, if you have the pieces there, you can see how they connect. But some others, it's just, like, wildly different.
Oh, that brings back memories.
Oh, those things. I remember those things. I don't remember what they're called, but I remember those things. But yeah. And some of it is stuff that doesn't get implemented. So, like, one of the big examples that I know of is the original Devil May Cry game. There's a lot of stuff in the concept art book that just wasn't used at all.
Oh, I've never looked at that
because,
one.
Yeah, well, and I mean, part of it is because originally it was going to be Resident Evil 4, I think. And the concept was that the main character, who at the time was called Tony, was supposed to be this sort of private detective type character who's trying to investigate basically his own history and what the hell is up with his body, because it's supposed to be this thing of, like, oh, it's like genetically enhanced nonsense stuff. So there's some characters where it's like, this is a detective he was supposed to work with, and here's him standing in a bar with a teddy bear next to him for some reason. But as they were going through and designing things, they just kind of went, actually, let's do something different, because this feels different. And then we got the DMC we have, which is this sort of gothic horror designed action game where you're going through a castle on an island to go fight a devil.
Yeah, my personal headcanon, now that you've said this, my personal headcanon is now that Dante's real name is Tony. That's gonna stick with me.
Funnily enough,
Oh, is it? I don't
the
really
other
know
way
anything about those
around
games.
is true. It is canon that for a length of time when he was like a feral teenager going around unattended, he went by the name Tony.
His real name.
But yeah, there's some interesting art there where it's just kind of like, oh, that would be an interesting idea, but it wasn't used. And it's the same with a lot of them, and some of it's just we're going through figuring out outfits. So like the Devil May Cry 5 book especially has a lot of art where it's just kind of like we're throwing things at a wall to try and figure out what the style for this new player character is.
Oh yeah.
Then you've got other things where it's like here's concept art of this demon statue thing, which is supposed to be shaped after Dante's father, except the demon statue thing is a woman. It's like, well, that brings up some questions.
Honestly, Devil May Cry, I'll go along with that.
and then they did it again. So that was with 4. With 5, there is a character in the game called V, where some of the early concept art in the game, that character is also a woman, which again brings up more questions. It's like, you've done this twice now.
But yeah,
And I find it. You're like, I like it. I think it's fun. But
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, this has happened twice. I now have 2 Nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird.
Oh, they're both called Nicole.
Hold on.
I love the. There we go. The delay makes it.
Well, I have to bring up the Discord thing and then hit the button. Although I
I know,
guess
it's
at some
great.
point I should just make a hotkey.
No. I like the delay. Delay's good. But yeah,
But yeah,
lots
that
of-
actually might be interesting. Find some concept art books and then be like, so what is this?
Yeah, what do you think this eventually turned into? Because like I say, some of my favorite concept art stuff is from like very early in development, where they're like, we don't really know what it is we're making yet. I will always recommend like the first 30 pages of the Bioshock Infinite concept art book, because they have nothing to do with what's in the game at all, and they're just people going like, well, what do we do? And there's some real cool stuff in there.
And to a certain extent, that sort of makes sense for like the first game of a thing, where it's like we don't really know what we want to do yet. So another game that I know where the early designs that were made that eventually led to it are just totally different. Though one of them actually made it into the game. Hades. Originally, when they were toying with the idea was going to be that you've got shoot, what's his name? Greek hero who fought the Minotaur.
My brain has stopped working.
Is that fair?
Cresp.exe has stopped.
Mine has also stopped working. He is a character in the game proper. It's just also he's annoying, so I try to ignore him.
Theseus.
Theseus, there we go.
Thank you, Plamps.
Yeah, so the main character was supposed to be Theseus, and you're trying to escape from the labyrinth. Well, as they were going through development, it was just kind of like, actually, we don't like him as the hero. Let's do something else. But Theseus is still in the game as the worst combination of a jock and a theater kid and one of the enemies. And there is, there you can get a decorative, like you can decorate the walls in your home base, and one of the pictures you can get is patterned off of some concept art of what Theseus was going to look like. in that original game where Theseus was going to be your protagonist. So that one, yeah, there's some concept art that's like that this isn't in the final game proper, because again, they were like, what do we want to do with this?
Yeah, that's fair.
And you just sort of throw spaghetti at the wall until you find something that sticks. Yeah, I think originally the game was also supposed to be a lot like darker, and then it's like, how about we make this just like the whole theme just dealing with like family drama stuff.
What? Old pantheons of gods and family drama? Who'd have thought of putting those together?
It's like there's a thing where you're dying over and over, but also you are the son of the god of the underworld, so dying is just sort of an inconvenience. And yes, Theseus is a giant jerk. Asterius deserves better. Asterius being the name of the Minotaur who is comrades with Theseus and Hades. They fight together. And Asterius is delightful and very personable, and Theseus is a jerk.
Boo. Let delightful people have nice friends.
I mean, his main redeeming quality is if you take out Asterius first in a fight, he is obviously very distraught and upset. So if you mess around with Asterius, he will mess with you. But also he's a jerk. So like his main redeeming quality is he is founder of the Asterius Protection Squad. Let's see, what are some other games that I know of where I know that the original concept changed a lot between the final game? Actually, I think those are just the two big ones that I know off the top of my head. But that's also because I've done a lot of lore diving into both of those canons.
Yeah. I probably find quite a lot of games end up changing a lot from their original intent. There are more. I know more. But
Well, it's
the
like
brain...
I know there are more.
Yeah.
But also, like I said, it's one of those things of it's mostly games that are at the sort of the start of a thing where we have no idea. So like even if they're not 100% sure what they're going to be doing with them, with most Mario games, you know Mario's going to be in it.
Yeah. Speaking of Bioshock, apparently the original Bioshock was originally like almost up until release very different. Like there were like monsters and all sorts of a very different sort of tone to it, and then they sort of hit on this idea of like, oh, actually, you know, we can lean more into the sort of human side of the story, and because they had when they released all the remasters, they had a little like gallery thing that you could walk around in game and look at like old concept stuff, which is really neat. Xenogears was supposed to be Final Fantasy VII before they went to another direction and made Xenogears instead. I did hear about that, yes, and I also heard about the Xenogears. Is it Xenogears that is like they just didn't have time or space or money to make the entire last third of the story because it was way too long. So they were just like, okay, well, in order to you know make this work, we'll just have like a big cut where things happen off screen.
Yeah, I think that was one of the ones where it's like this. If you think FF9 sort of peters out at the end, oh boy. Now, what they could have done, and this is sort of funny because I know there's at least one game where this happened before. One of the SMT games, the Digital Devil Saga. Okay, there's two sets of SMT games that are DDS, and I can never keep them track. But I think it's Digital Devil Saga. It's a duology. It's literally two halves of the same story. So the first game ends, and it ends in such a way that it's very clear that the story's not finished yet. And so you then start up the second game, and then it's like, okay, now we're finishing up the rest of the story. And with how it's done, it's a very clear, like gameplay wise, it's very clear why your everything sort of resets between the two. But yeah, the end of Digital Devil Saga 1, it's like this story is not over yet. There is obviously a part 2.
You saying the splicers aren't monsters. I'm saying, I'm trying to look up. So like, yeah, this was the original thing that got replaced by the Little Sisters. That's the sort of thing I mean. But that would have been a good one. I could have put that forward and gone, what did this turn into? It turned into small girls.
That's
Yeah, Bioshock changed. And look, as you can see, quite late in development.
Yeah, and that's interesting to me because, and we've had this discussion before, the thing that takes the longest time is development of assets. So it's like, games that change how an asset is used late in development sort of makes sense to me, but doing we're just going to scrap all of these assets that we've already made and rebuild things, it's like, cool. That's going to take time. Well, they managed to make a beloved game, so.
Oh yeah. In the case of Bioshock 1, the changes they made were absolutely for the better. Bioshock Infinite, more up in the air. I personally would have loved to sim some of the really weird stuff they had going on there, but no, they wanted something more focused. And sorry, I'm now
Yeah,
just
the
looking.
main things I know from Infinite where it's like, oh, that was a major mistake. It's very obvious later. They make it obvious later on that they looked back and went, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have done that.
But there's also some wonderful concept art for like locations in these games. And the early location concept art to try and work out where, like, what the location of Bioshock Infinite should be is really absolutely lovely. Like, nothing like what ended up in the game, obviously. They were trying to find the tone and setting and all that sort of stuff. But there's just some real cool stuff. And also some real horrible monsters.
Rawr.
But anyway, that's an idea for the future. But now, we shall end the stream.
Yes.
I guess we can turn everything on. Blip, 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 blip. I wouldn't sniff that if I were you, Cat. Ah, yeah, I like your little grasshopper. Yee! So thanks for coming. Hope you all had a lovely time. Apologies for the maths. It was bound to happen.
Yeah, you left 2 mathematicians unattended. This is not our fault.
Ah, yeah, the kitties, yeah. I'll get back. There's a little night kitty and Steve.
It looks like Knife Kitty is threatening the giant blob that is your drawings.
take down my monsters. Thanks for friendly voices. I'm glad we could be, nice friendly voices. We'll make next friend our stream. It's all good. It's all good. So long as you're enjoying yourself. Knife Kitty's a friend. So yes, the stream will return on. That's the wrong button. How long have I been doing this for? I still don't know what I'm supposed to click for streams. We'll be back Tuesday morning to draw the parsnip for the game that we're going to play Tuesday evening, which is Ghost Trek Phantom Detective. Very generously gifted to me by Ragdoll. And I'm very much looking forward to exciting times. We try to be around for more of our streams too. Yeah, friends. And yeah, everyone's welcome to join these streams. It's all open. Have fun doing little doodles. And if you have any suggestions for sort of things you want to see in these streams, do let us know. There's always sprites, but there's always other things as well. Although at some point these streams will become the sort of next sort of 16 symbols-y doodle-y draw through thing. I think maybe these streams. I want it to be a day that people can make. Maybe Saturdays instead? I don't know. But that's game streams. We'll have to work it out. Because we said we were going to do like 16 symbols, but instead of fantasy, do like space fantasy. Your Borderlands-y, Star Wars-y, Farscape, Stargate nonsense. But we thought it would be a fun time to do it together, so that we could sort of chat about the story as we go through and reveal symbols and go, wow, no, why is someone dying? But yeah.
And then why is someone being revived again?
Yes. Science, space fantasy, you've got even more choices. You can have tech. Which is basically just fantasy with flashing lights. It's magic, but made of metal. That's my main thing with, like, space fantasy. There's the difference between sci-fi and space fantasy. Sci-fi attempts to explain what the metal box does. Space fantasy is just magic in metal. Also, I think a fun thing to do for that one would be, like, everybody gets to, like... everybody gets to bring along a species. I think that'll be fun. And so if no one brings along humans, no humans. And B... Did I do A or 1? Okay, split the difference. Beta, everyone gets to bring along like a little thing in the world of like, yeah, we have Stargates, or we have sirens from Borderlands or what have you, space wizards or witches. Side-eyeing Borderlands, Farscape, Stargate, The Expanse. There's a wide variety. Oh, yeah, there we are. Oh, I can't show it on screen because we're in the wrong thing. But yes, we're aiming for the Star Wars corner there of narratively fantasy, aesthetically science fiction. That's the corner we're going for with that. Although we can drift off into other directions for fun.
I do find it funny that Homestuck is in the middle.
That's what that is.
Because one, that's correct, but two, it makes me angry.
I don't know what that is. So, I mean, I've heard of Homestuck, but I don't know anything about it.
Don't ask anyone to try and explain Homestuck.
Oh no, it's fine. I'm good. I'll stick with using my time for good. Because I've just found out that they've put all the old Doctor Who's on iPlayer, so I can watch 1960s Doctor Who. Exciting times. You can't explain the Homestuck. I have heard this.
I mean, you can. It's just not worth it.
Can you, like, is it like perfect information? Can it be explained shorter than the time it takes to just consume it?
Not if you want to have any idea what the hell is going on.
Okay, right. So it's perfect information.
And even then, it's not going to be perfectly perfect information because some of the pages have been redone since they were made because of
Oh.
things that were put in later stories, in later images.
Retcons.
There are literally images that do not look like what they were before because of plot elements that happen later on.
Read it 2 or 3 times. It's the reason you got on Tumblr and the internet in general. See, now I'm we did a little thing of a little quiz where everybody brought their own quiz questions about something that they knew nobody else would know anything about. And Plamps I brought along a .txt document and scrolled through it. Plamps, meanwhile, had an entire PowerPoint with animations and everything, and it was great. And I want that now of Plamps explaining Homestuck to me. I think that would be a fun and also terrifying time.
Oh, yeah, and that's the other thing Plampset brought up. Homestuck was a multimedia thing, and there were a number of animations or images with like minimal animation that were done in Flash. Now there is a project that a bunch of fans put together that was trying to make a web page to preserve as much of it as possible, but I don't remember how far along that got. Mostly when it comes to the Homestuck fandom, I just sort of skirted around the edges going, well, that's fun. And then went and played with my own toys.
And there is a downloadable archive, which should be all of it. We ignore Homestuck 2. There was a sequel?
Kind of.
Well, I'm surprised that there was a sequel called Homestuck 2, frankly, from what I understand of Homestuck. I would have expected there to be like 6 branching sequels in different universes or something strange, but... What if Homestuck from memory with Plamp? Heckling welcomed. Plamp's Homestuck draw-through. I'm here for that.
Oh boy. Bunch of nonsense.
Because I know literally nothing about Homestuck, so I'm up for it.
I know enough, some of it against my will.
Oh, Homestuck squared. Or Superscript 2. Or Carrot 2.
Or raised to the second power.
Yes. Or whatever else a Superscript 2 could mean in various areas of symbolic notation. Anywho, I think we need to part our separate way and have a lovely week. And have a lovely week ahead, everybody. Had a great time at quiz and absolutely got bodied, if you remember correctly. But you did a great presentation. It was lovely. I'm trying to remember the name of the thing you did the presentation for. Was it called Worm or something? I remember a worm. But yeah, have a lovely time, everyone. Thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed. Worm. It was Worm. Yes, cool. See, I do have a memory. Yes. We'll be back Tuesday with Ghost Trick. Very excited about that one. And then Wednesday for the Final Fantasy draw through. I have played a little bit more of that and got to explain all that.
I mean, you don't have to. We could just write it out.
I'm very tempted.
Wrote out
actually.
Fly.
We've written out
We wrote
Fly
out
and
characters
Knuckles
already.
there is an opportunity for us to write out Simeon. That's all I'm saying. Goat Trick. There might be a goat. I don't know. We'll find out. It's a time, isn't it? Yeah. There's a point. There's a sequence in Final Fantasy IX that I'm tempted to get the script for and read it out because it's just.
You see, the fun thing is, for the most part, I actually kind of like Simeon as a character, but
He's
the
alright.
second, like the second arc, quote unquote, of that story just does not do anyone any favors.
No. Only seen my friend play the first couple of hours, and it's a time. Yeah, I have also only seen the first hour or two, and I'm very excited to see where it goes. So yeah, exciting. So have a lovely time, everybody. Have a lovely week. Thanks for chit chatting. And we'll see you all around. Goodbye, everybody. Bye.
Bye bye.